Jason Collins. He is a center for the N.B.A. So he recently wrote a piece for Sports Illustrated, and in his piece he came out, and this is a big deal because this is the first time it's happened in the N.B.A. And it's a very courageous thing for him to do. Now, as we know, public opinion has shifted in favor of gay rights, but nonetheless, it is a very difficult thing for someone like him to do. In fact, he opens his op-ed by saying, "I'm a 34-year-old NBA center. I'm black and I'm gay."
Damn. All right, what else you got?
All right, he also says the following. He says, "I didn't set out to be the first openly gay athlete playing in a major American team sport, but since I am, I'm happy to start the conversation. I wish I wasn't the kid in the classroom raising his hand and saying, 'I'm different.' If I had my way, someone else would have already done this. Nobody has, which is why I'm raising my hand."
All right, bless his heart. Like, the problem with this is it's so accepted now that it's less dramatic, and that's a big problem. No, it's actually part of the solution. It's great. I mean, everybody's happy that he came out. I mean, there's a couple of guys who are haters, obviously. But even though he's the first one in any of the four major sports while active to come out and say it, and his last team was the Wizards, by the way, it seems kind of anticlimactic.
It seems anticlimactic for us because we are in our liberal bubble, but in the world of professional athletics, it's a little different because no one else has come out like this. You know, it's seen as something that is courageous, and you know, there was a member of the 49ers just a few months ago who had some hideous things to say about gay people, right? So it's in that world, it's a little different, so I don't want to pretend as if everything is similar to what we experience in our bubble.
No, of course. And, you know, Jason also said in his editorial, "I've endured years of misery," that's a pretty strong word, "and gone to enormous lengths to live a lie. I was certain that my world would fall apart if anyone knew. And yet when I acknowledged my sexuality, I felt whole for the first time. My friends still had my back." So that's to acknowledge how scared people are of coming out, especially in a situation like that, where no one's ever done it before. Now, the reality is that's not exactly true, because before there was an openly gay basketball player in the N.B.A., there was an openly gay basketball player in the TYT League. And that's actually Dave Rubin from the Rubin Report. And Dave, you know, if anyone can relate to Jason Collins today, it's you.
Well, I sometimes do feel like a 7-foot black man, so yes, I can relate. I like how you, when you started this thing, you qualified it by saying scores 1 point a game, which actually is relevant because the guy's not the greatest player anymore. But it's kind of funny, as if, you know, there's some number in there. If he had scored 15 points a game, now we have a true gay hero. 20 points, it's like gay superstar. 1 point, it's like, okay, you're out. Well, you know, we'll give this a good day.
But I hear you, but there is relevance to that, right? So in the sense that since he doesn't have that much of a career left, and right. I don't mean to hate, I'm just saying he's been in the league for 12 years. He knows he's a role player. He did a good job as a role player, etc. But it's a little easier for him than, let's say, if I'm just going to make up a random name, don't get crazy on me. Steph Curry was like, "Oh yeah, by the way, I'm gay." Like, everybody would be like, "Whoa, what?" Right? Yeah. Or, you know, Derrick Rose was like, "Oh, not a big deal, but I'm gay."
Right.
That'd be gigantic. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and it's interesting because on one hand, he has nothing to lose because his career could potentially be over just by age and the fact that he doesn't produce like that. On the other hand, he has a lot to gain here. I mean, Nike has already said that they want to sponsor an out gay athlete. He's actually signed by Nike already, which is kind of bizarre because you think of Nike as like Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan and all the primetime guys, like, but they do have the
not
other.
To hate, but why bother signing this guy? Like,
well, they gotta
now
wear
it
shoes.
Makes sense, right?
Yeah.
But like, what? Like the 10th guy on the bench of the Wizards?
Yeah. But think about how crazy it is. It's like he lived with this thing, this shame, never felt whole, all this stuff. The President of the United States called him today. Bill Clinton issued a statement. Every N.B.A. player is backing him. I mean, it just goes to show how it's an inside job. You know, you do this to yourself, unfortunately, or external things make you do it to yourself, and then.
So let me just jump in with a few things that I found really interesting. So he actually has a twin, and his twin is like a few minutes younger than he is. And he said that he didn't come out to his brother until last year. So, you know, as Dave mentioned, you know, he was living with this misery for such a long time. I mean, he didn't even come out to his family until very recently. He came out to an aunt first, and, you know, his aunt was like, "Yeah, dude, totally knew you were gay. Not a big deal. And he was like surprised, he couldn't believe it.
Because he thought he was doing a good job of hiding it.
Yeah.
And remember, that was a huge part of his life. How do I hide this from my teammates? How do I hide it from my family? Then he's all nervous. He tells his aunt, she's like, whatevs, dude. It's super obvious, right? And Dave, let me go back to you on that. So, when and you played sports, you played organized sports, etc. Were you nervous about that?
It's just always there. It's really hard to describe to straight people. Like when you are in the closet, every single part of your life is you question yourself constantly. Every little mannerism, everything you say, every adjective and adverb, particularly, you think you might have slipped. It's just when you're not being truthful, it genuinely infects everything. So whether sports or not, now sports, of course, because it's supposedly so macho, and I'm glad that I didn't hear too many people talking about the shower thing today, because I'm sure that if every player he's ever played with was to think back, he never did anything inappropriate in the shower. But that's always the thing they come, well, we shower together, so I can't, and it never amounts to anything.
Right. That's interesting, and I feel your pain, brother. Because when I, in the past, have cheated on girlfriends, it's and I gotta lie, and I keep the lies straight.
It's a lot.
Way to go, Jake.
I had to deal with stuff too.
You're burdened. It's tough.
Yeah, it's so tough. I love how comparing, cheating to being gay.
Yeah.
But okay.
What? Isn't every story about me? All right. Anyway,
Yes.
But his brother's reaction was really interesting, Anna.
Yeah, so he came out to his brother, and his brother was completely surprised by it. He's like, wait, what? You're gay? And you would think that as a twin brother, he would be more aware of, what his gay brother is going through, but no, he wasn't.
But
he was just completely oblivious to it, which I found fascinating, especially given the fact that his aunt was completely aware of it. His aunt didn't even question it. It was like, yeah, that's right, you're gay. And he's very close with his brother. It's not like he didn't have a good relationship with him. His brother knew what was going on.
Yeah, and we should mention that his brother also is an N.B.A. player, so maybe the basketball gene is stronger than the gay gene. That's probably a whole other study that will now be, commissioned.
Yeah, well, the 7-foot gene might have had something to do with it.
Exactly.
So, but that's interesting too. Dave, I wanted to ask you about that. When you came out, were people across the spectrum like that? Like, oh, come on, dude, it was so obvious you were gay. Or to like people are like, what, signal on your what?
No, most people said they didn't think that I was, or they didn't believe me. Or
you didn't have any potpourri tells?
I didn't have any real, I love the Golden Girls. That's like every gay person has like one thing that's like the complete tip-off, and I know every line ever from the Golden Girls, so that's...
Straight dudes like Golden Girls too, right?
And I know you probably want to believe that, but...
So across the board, or no,
Pretty much.
Most people were surprised.
Actually, the only person who said that they knew when I told them was my grandma, who was in the beginning stages of getting dementia, and she said to me that she thought she knew because she was in the theater in the 30s, but she was never in the theater in the 30s.
So perhaps not the most reliable source.
Precisely. But yeah, people, and that's the thing. Even though I thought I was giving off all these hints constantly and everyone was on to me in this constant shell game, it's actually like what you're saying about how his aunt knew, but the brother didn't know. I mean, imagine being a grown adult, 30-something years old, and living that kind of life where you have different sets of truth depending on who you talk to. It's exhausting.
You know, putting the kidding aside, seriously, to go back to the cheating on the girlfriend point, the reason I brought that up is because when I did that, I was exhausted, and I had to try to figure out which lie was, wait, did I say Wednesday? Shit, did I say Thursday? Oh, she's gonna catch me right. Now imagine, and if you've been through that, your whole life is that, right? And like, to me, like when people talk about Mormons, Muslims, 4 wives, etc., whatever, right? I'm like, oh, hell no, I got no interest, right? And part of it is the stress of trying to figure out, if you did something right, wrong, etc. Now, like at least that those guys could be honest with their wives. But that's, to me, the pressure and the stress, especially in the locker room, especially in professional sports. So even though there's been great reaction today overall, and it seems like the society is much more welcoming, which is a great thing, understand that it was still a very courageous move of Jason Collins to finally say, I'm not gonna live that life.